Lady of 1,000 veils. Lady of 1,000 veils. I am the Holy Grail. I am the...
Peace and love. This is SPICA, the Mother Star. You're tuning in to Daughter of the Old Wise Serpent. And today we're going to talk about who are the Nagas, or AKA the niggas. I want you to check out this little video clip from this brother. Shout out to him. I'm going to put all his information for this full video in the description link so that you could check him out. All right, here we go. Check this brother out. We know that the vowels are interchangeable, so we could take the A out of the word Naga and put an I there, which stands for nigga. And let's talk exactly what is a Naga. A Naga is a serpent, okay? Because the Bible talked about the old wise serpent who tried to tell the truth to the woman, and then there was so-called God who was against the truth being told, okay?
See, because the serious gods, the serious gods, which are the Anunnaki, the melanated humans from Star Constellation, who are giants, the originals, the ones that are pure Anunnaki, they're actually serpents. A serpent. Now, what is a serpent? And I'm going to be making a video on the serpent soon. The serpent is the wise bearer, 360 degrees of knowledge. The original Lemurians that were on this planet in Lemuria, the original Kemites, the original Moors who set out in Europe in the Dark Ages, the Moors that were there, the dark melanated people that were the kings and queens over there. Those are the ones that the saints that had that big glow around, the photon glow around them. Those were Moors. And Moors are really serpents. Now, this is why you see the pharaoh in ancient Kemet. The pharaoh has a serpent coming out of his crown. The serpent queens have a serpent coming out of their crown. The symbology of the serpent is dealing with godhood, the god hierarchy, that god-like hierarchy. There is a god hierarchy in the angelic heavens, but there's many different hierarchies within different types of angelic beings. But the ones that are called the serpents are the most powerful, because they are the most closest to being like the Lord himself. Understand? So now that we have got that out of the way, we need to deal with something right now. The serpents they're really a snake god. It's a snake god. But this snake god is also very much like a dragon as well. You can actually look at the serpent as being a holy dragon. You can look at the Draconians from Alpha Draconis. You can look at them as demonic dragons. So you have two different types of dragons. Demonic dragons and holy dragons. And the holy dragons are far, 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 far more fiercer, far more stronger, far more everything. Okay? Alright, now, when you look at the information that was left in Nagasaki, in Asia, you'll actually see that the government corporation, the federal government, had to actually bomb Nagasaki and tear down all of the ancient information that was left there. They didn't want people to learn about the Nagas. The Nagaas. Nagas, or Naginis, which is female. Naginis, or Naga, serpent kings and queens. They didn't want that information to get leaked out to the public. So what they tried to do is try to deceive the masses, don't tell them nothing about this place, and tear the place down. This is why you hear the bombing of Hiroshima and all this stuff, because they knew that this information was going to get out. There was too many people over there that knew the story about what happened over there. You see the ancient Buddha statue over there. This is dealing with the Moors and the ancient priesthood. And what they tried to do and come from the fifth dimension into the third dimensional realm to try to help people and guide people in the right spiritual path. This is why wherever the sun is hitting the most on the planet, that is where the people are the most spiritual.
So as the brother was saying, they tried to hide the information about who the Nagas was and started calling them niggas and bombed Nagasaki, which is City of the Serpents. Now, over here in America, it was so much proof of the serpent cult that they could not get rid of it. Let's talk about the serpent mounds. All right. If you are from the Iroquois lineage, which means snake, you are from, if you are from the Americas, North, South, Central America, but let's talk about North America, because that's where all the niggers are. If your bloodline is from the Iroquois Confederation, then you are snake people. Yeah, you are from the lineage of the serpent. You have serpent DNA inside your body, which goes into the story of, let's just say, the prophet Moses, okay, who also used the serpent, the staff of Moses, which turned into a serpent in order to win against Pharaoh and part the Red Sea and all of these things. Seems like that old white serpent from the Bible has gotten to more people than so-called Eve or Inanna or Isis or Osset or Mary or Miriam or Sophia, right? Because look at Moses. Moses is definitely using the serpent to draw power. Let's see exactly what that serpent said to so-called Eve in the garden. I definitely want to go over that conversation about what was said to her and watch and see how when she ate from the tree, nothing happened until so-called Adam ate from the tree and everything fell.
Not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
And God warned them that if they disobeyed, they would die. Snake comes along and says, once you've got access to the tree of wisdom, you can become like the gods. You can move up the ladder.
In a very human moment, we're told, Eve couldn't resist the temptation to take more. So she took a bite, and she passed the apple to Adam. It was the snack that changed history.
The man and the woman hide because they're afraid, because they know they've done something wrong.
When God says, "Did you eat?" it's Adam who points the finger at Eve. And not only at Eve, but at God. Because he says, she gave me, and you gave her to me.
Now an angry God casts his creation out of paradise. And just like Adam, throughout the millennia, everyone has blamed Eve.
Women are blamed for lots of things that perhaps they...
So now we got Adam, Eve, and the serpent. All right, so I just wanted to cover a little bit of who the serpent is, who is the bloodline, who are the serpent people, and the serpent people are the niggas or the Nagas. And there's a big cover-up and conspiracy about who this bloodline and people are. And there are imposters. There's a big cover-up. All right. So if the niggas or Nagas want to gain power, has to be from the serpent. Has to be from the old white serpent. I want you guys to go do the research on any type of voodoo system, Santeria, Ifa, or any of those ancient indigenous magical systems, and tell me that Moses wasn't invoking Dambala Wedo for power. Okay, you can find the serpent inside the African magical indigenous systems. So now we know and have proof that Eve, also known as the Sumerian goddess Inanna, who already had serpent DNA, right? She already had this DNA inside of her. So when she ate from the apple, when the serpent told her she was bound to be like God, basically was telling her to eat from that tree so that it can activate the serpent DNA inside of her because it belonged to her, right? Now, when she gave it to her husband, Adam, and he ate from it, it didn't belong to him, obviously, because what they say is everything, the fall started once he ate from it. But when Inanna ate from it, she was already a serpent being, and it activated the serpent force inside of her.
And then we know that the person that is there, the female part that would be there with Dumuzi, would be Inanna. That's something to get into. That's interesting. I think I'll get into that later. So, Nagishita is known for being a serpent and is called the Lord.
All right, just to close off this video, to reiterate, the serpent in the garden was one of the seraphim, which is one of the highest class beings in the angelic realm. They're called the bright burning ones. Okay. And it was the seraphim that Eve was talking to inside the garden that guided her to eat from this particular tree. She already had that DNA inside of her because she was from that bloodline of the serpent beings. All right. So if you're wondering who these serpent beings are, because they were cast out of the heavenly world down to this earth plane or terrain, right? And then it's shielded. They were shielded with a sword or force field from entering back into the garden, all right, which goes into this whole dome force field over this particular realm. And who actually is down here and the cover up of who they are, all right? The bright burning ones, the seraphim, the serpent beings, the serpent mounds that our ancestors built, letting us know who we are. All right. So I just wanted to leave this last bit of information about, if you belong to the Iroquois lineage, then you are from Serpent DNA. You are the Nagas, who they try to cover up by giving us false names, false gods, you name it. They try to use it to cover it up. And we are the bright burning ones. That's why we are fiery beings. That's why we are children of the sun. All right. So this is SPICA, the Mother Star. Thank you for tuning in to Daughter of the Old White Serpent. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video. Peace and love, my serpent family.
Abracadabra like magic, they call me Lord Aberastus. Abracadabra like magic, raise the dead out the caskets, send them offers in a basket. Abracadabra like magic, words of power can be tragic, words of power can be tragic. This one here is a classic, this one is a classic. Call her Maria, switch up the flow, let me call her so
In the beginning, the Bible tells us, God created the heavens and the earth. Then God's wind swept over the surface of the dark waters, and God said, "Let there be light." He separated the day from the night, and then he created life. And after all of this, God saw that it was good. And so it goes, the story of humanity, our story, begins. God created a man and a woman and gave them a perfect place to live, a garden called Eden.
Well, the garden is depicted as an orchard. God gives them this wonderful orchard, tells them they can eat all the fruit they want.
And they live in peace with the animals and with one another. It's an image of peace, completion, wholeness.
When we imagine the Garden of Eden, most of us think of a paradise like this, the ultimate Shangri-La, better than anything we could ever find on earth. But what does the Bible actually say about where it all began?
The biblical description is actually very short. It just says there are 4 rivers. Tigris and Euphrates are 2 of them, and then the other 2 are actually kind of unknown. That's the problem. If you can figure out where all 4 rivers are, then you've got the location.
And it is the tantalizing mention of these 2 remaining rivers that has fueled a never-ending search for the Garden of Eden. For centuries, people have looked everywhere from the depths of the Persian Gulf to rural Missouri and even the planet Mars.
I have a problem with the whole looking for the Garden of Eden, because how are you going to know when you found it? There's no signpost to it because writing hasn't been invented yet.
Which brings us back to the Bible story and the 2 rivers that we can locate today, the Tigris and the Euphrates in southern Iraq. They come together in an area known as the Fertile Crescent, where civilization first began. A perfect backdrop for the biblical beginning.
You've got a place that early man and early women could live in kind of idyllic harmony and with the food readily accessible and all that. And that's what we're really talking about, is an earthly paradise.
We're told that Adam and Eve have everything they could ever need, but in order to keep all this, they had to obey one rule.
God tells Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
And God warned them that if they disobeyed, they would die. Snake comes along and says, once you've got access to the tree of wisdom, you can become like the gods. You can move up the ladder.
In a very human moment, we're told Eve couldn't resist the temptation to take more. So she took a bite, and she passed the apple to Adam. It was the snack that changed history.
The man and the woman hide because they're afraid, because they know they've done something wrong.
When God says, "Did you eat?" it's Adam who points the finger at Eve. And not only at Eve, but at God. Because he says, "She gave me, and you gave her to me."
Now an angry God casts his creation out of paradise. And just like Adam, throughout the millennia, everyone has blamed Eve.
Women are blamed for lots of things that perhaps they need not. Adam could have said, "That fruit, I'm not going to eat it." But he took the fruit and he ate it.
Does that trouble you, the way it's been portrayed?
Of course it's troubling, but it reminds me that the Bible, for all that we say it's a divine document, it is written from a man's point of view.
Ironically, in the Muslim holy book, the Quran, there's more than enough blame to go around.
Both Adam and Eve are to blame equally for eating the forbidden fruit. So they're co-equal human beings, and I think that's been lost in today's narrative about Islam and Muslims, and I think that's something important to keep in mind.
But in the end, it didn't really matter whose fault it was. They both suffered the consequences of disobeying God. The first lesson of Genesis is cold and hard. For humans, sustaining life on this earth is not meant to be easy.
We have to go out into that cold, suffering world where we labor by the sweat of our brows and give forth our children in pain and have to suffer and die.
And we Christians believe that this is why Jesus came, to solve that problem, to pay the penalty for sin.
But maybe when Eve made the choice that Christians call original sin, it was something more. Maybe it was the first act of original thought.
Adam and Eve?
Free will?
Oh, absolutely, free will. That's a story of you can make a choice. That's the most horrible thing that faces a human being. You gotta choose.
On our journey, we met believers who say the Bible is the literal truth straight from the mouth of God.
Do you think that it happened?
And we met others, even those of faith, who believe that these are stories and have been passed down through the generations.
What brought you to Israel?
A record of a people's struggle with the world and their place in it. So how are we meant to read the book of creation?
This is a wonderful myth. A myth is more than history. It's telling you the meaning of history, the meaning of events.
God can communicate truth through different types of literature. It doesn't always have to be newspaper-style account of what happened.
For instance, was the world created in 7 days, or did it take millions of years of evolution? Both. Both.
So you're
of
saying
those
that
languages.
as a Catholic priest?
Yes, absolutely.
Science gives us insight into the how the universe works, how particles behave, but it gives zero insight into why. And I mean, why are we here? What's the meaning of it all? For some people, religion offers some degree of insight into those very important questions.
Important and difficult questions the Bible forces us to think about, like jealousy and rage, and why some people come to hate and harm each other. A lesson starkly taught in the story of the first children, the first siblings. Cain is a shepherd and Abel is a farmer. Both offer sacrifices to God, but God likes Abel's better.
This is about life as we know it, and life as we know it is not fair. We feel the pain of those whom God hasn't chosen.
In a fit of jealousy, Cain kills his brother Abel.
This was sort of the first example that we ever saw of murder, and the gravity with which God holds the taking of another human life.
And yet, with the passage of thousands of years, humankind is still at it. As surely as Cain killed Abel, the slaughter of innocents continues in the very place the Bible tells us this story was set, today's Syria, racked by the most brutal of wars. And in a sleepy town in Connecticut, the horrifying massacre of children in their elementary school.
How do we make sense of our torn world and our torn personalities, and the conflicts and the despair we fall into when we see suffering and injustice?
What I think the Bible does really well is help us ask really good questions. How could we do this better? If I were in this person's shoes, how would I have acted? If I'm judge and jury, what punishment would I assess? And God forbid, if I committed that crime, what would I want my peers to do